When Discovery Channel's Street Outlaws first hit the airwaves, even the cast thought they were walking into an FBI sting operation. What started as a group of Oklahoma City racers convinced they'd be arrested has evolved into one of television's most controversial reality shows, complete with million-dollar cast members, tragic fatalities during filming, murder charges, and a cast member who started illegally driving at age 12. Behind the burnouts and trash talk lies a world far stranger than anything scripted television could imagine. Fact 1. Cast thought show was FBI sting. When Discovery Channel first approached the Oklahoma City street racing crew about filming a television show, Joe Dominator Woods was absolutely convinced he was walking straight into a federal trap. The seasoned racer, who had been building cars at home while working his day job, genuinely believed that the network producers were undercover FBI agents running an elaborate sting operation designed to catch street racers in the act. Woods wasn't just being paranoid either, because he had good reason to be suspicious of anyone showing sudden interest in the underground racing scene. Back in the 1990s, he had already been caught up in a SWAT sting operation. So when these supposed television people came knocking with cameras and contracts, every alarm bell in his head started ringing. The whole situation felt way too convenient and way too good to be true for someone who had spent years carefully avoiding law enforcement attention. Dominator later admitted that he didn't trust the show's producers at all when they first began filming, and he was completely prepared to end up behind bars rather than on television. He thought the Discovery Channel was some kind of secret spy operation, which sounds almost ridiculous now given how successful the show became, but at the time, it seemed like the most logical explanation for why anyone would want to film illegal street racing activities. The irony is that Dominator was completely wrong about his conspiracy theory, and instead of landing in jail, he and his crew became automotive superstars who turned their underground racing skills into a television empire. What started as genuine fear of federal prosecution ended up launching one of Discovery Channel's most popular and long-running reality series, proving that sometimes the most paranoid assumptions can lead to the most unexpected outcomes. Fact 2. Farm Truck started driving at age 12. Sean Farm Truck. Whitley's journey into the world of automotive rebellion began at an age when most kids are still figuring out how to ride bicycles without training wheels. At just 12 years old, Farm Truck was already behind the wheel of actual vehicles, driving illegally on public roads years before he would be legally eligible for even a learner's permit. This early start to his driving career wasn't just a one-time joyride either, but rather the beginning of what would become a lifetime pattern of bending automotive rules and regulations. While other 12-year-olds were playing video games or collecting baseball cards, Farm Truck was developing real-world driving skills that would eventually make him one of the most recognizable faces on Street Outlaws. His decision to start driving so young wasn't born out of rebellion against his parents or some desperate need for independence, but rather from a genuine passion for automobiles that couldn't wait for legal age requirements to catch up with his enthusiasm. The fact that Farm Truck began his driving career as a preteen helps explain his fearless approach to racing and his willingness to take on challenges that might intimidate other drivers. By the time he was legally old enough to obtain a driver's license, he already had years of experience navigating roads and handling vehicles under various conditions, giving him a significant advantage over drivers who waited until 16 to get behind the wheel. This early introduction to illegal driving also set the tone for his entire automotive career. As someone who was willing to operate outside conventional boundaries to pursue his passion for cars and racing, Farm Truck's childhood decision to start driving at 12 ultimately launched him on a path that would lead to television fame, but it also established him as someone who genuinely earned his outlaw reputation long before cameras started rolling. Fact 3. Nobody expected Season 2. When Street Outlaws first went into production, absolutely nobody involved with the project had any confidence that the show would survive past its initial season, including the Discovery Channel executives who greenlit the series in the first place. Justin, Big Chief, believed the show had any real chance of success or longevity in the competitive world of reality television. The path to television actually started with smaller, independent media companies filming the Oklahoma City racing scene, and everything grew organically from there until a company called 1320 Video posted clips of the races online that unexpectedly went viral. When Discovery Channel came knocking after seeing the massive online response, even they approached the project with extremely low expectations and serious doubts about whether audiences would actually tune in to watch street racing from Oklahoma. Big Chief admitted that the network producers were completely upfront about their pessimism, telling the cast directly that they didn't think the show would last past the first season, and that everyone should prepare for a very short television run. This brutal honesty about the show's expected failure actually worked in everyone's favor because it meant that the cast had absolutely nothing to lose and decided to hold nothing back while filming those early episodes. Since everyone was convinced they were making television that would quickly disappear into obscurity, the racers brought their most authentic personalities and genuine racing enthusiasm to every scene, creating the raw energy and unfiltered drama that would eventually make the show a hit. The Discovery Channel was so impressed with the unexpected quality and viewer response to that first season that they ended up giving the crew 10 full seasons, proving that sometimes the best television happens when nobody expects it to succeed. Fact 4. Cast member charged with double murder. Izzy Valenzuela, who appeared on Discovery Channel's Street Outlaws, found himself facing 2 counts of murder charges after a tragic street racing accident that killed 2 innocent bystanders, even though he wasn't actually the driver whose car struck the victims. The incident occurred on February 25th when Valenzuela was racing against another driver named Michael Gevorgian on the streets of Los Angeles, where strict street racing laws hold all participants equally responsible for fatal accidents. During the race, Gevorgian lost control of his vehicle and crashed directly into a crowd of spectators, killing 2 people instantly and seriously injuring a third person who was watching the illegal street racing event. Under California's tough street racing legislation, prosecutors can charge all participants in illegal races with murder if someone dies during the event, regardless of which specific driver causes the fatal crash or loss of control. When TMZ contacted Valenzuela the day after the deadly accident, he initially denied being present at the racing scene and claimed he had been working at his auto shop that entire night, but his alibi quickly fell apart when investigators discovered that at least 60 witnesses had seen the race take place. Police reports later revealed that Valenzuela had not actually been driving the killer Ford Mustang himself, and the actual driver who borrowed the car, Gary Balian, was ultimately sentenced to 12 years in prison for his role in the deaths. Valenzuela was arrested, and prosecutors requested that he be held on $2 million bail while facing charges that could result in 33 years to life in prison if convicted. The case highlighted the serious legal consequences that street racers can face when their illegal activities result in tragedy, demonstrating how participants can be held criminally responsible for deaths even when they're not directly involved in the fatal collision. Fact 5. 100,000 car theft epidemic. The Street Outlaws cast found themselves with massive targets on their backs when organized car theft rings began specifically targeting their high-value racing vehicles, turning the show's stars into victims of some seriously expensive crimes. David Bird Jones became one of the most notable victims when thieves made off with his 1967 Chevrolet Camaro race car, along with the entire 36-foot trailer it was sitting on, creating a total loss that Bird estimated at around $100,000. The theft of Bird's prized Camaro was particularly brazen because the criminals managed to steal the car while it was still attached to his Ford truck in a hotel parking lot, demonstrating that these weren't just opportunistic crimes, but well-planned operations targeting specific vehicles. Bird was able to confirm the theft by reviewing surveillance footage that clearly showed a stranger approaching his setup and driving away with his entire racing operation, but there were no reports indicating whether his property was ever recovered or returned to him. Bird wasn't the only Street Outlaws cast member to fall victim to these organized theft rings. as someone also managed to steal the Reaper's Chevrolet, showing that the criminals were specifically targeting the show's most recognizable and valuable race cars. The thieves seem to have a particular preference for Chevrolet vehicles, possibly because these classic muscle cars are easier to strip for parts or resell in underground markets where documentation might be less scrutinized. The timing of Bird's theft was especially unfortunate because his Camaro had recently been damaged during a race and was still sitting on the trailer awaiting repairs when the criminals struck. The theft epidemic highlighted how the show's success had inadvertently made the cast members attractive targets for criminals who recognized the value of their custom-built racing machines and were willing to take significant risks to steal them. Fact 6. The races are actually legal. Despite all the dramatic warnings and outlaw imagery that Street Outlaws uses to create excitement, every single race filmed for the show is completely legal and approved by local authorities, making the entire illegal street racing premise nothing more than carefully crafted television fiction. The production crew goes through proper channels to obtain permits from whatever city they happen to be filming in, and these permits are either approved or denied by local officials who are fully aware that a television show is being produced. To keep everything as safe and legal as possible, local police officers regularly drop by the filming locations to monitor the races, and the roads are always completely shut down for the racers' private use during production. This means that the races are actually about as far away from illegal street racing as you can possibly get, since real illegal races happen on active roads with traffic and without any official supervision or safety measures in place. The controlled nature of the filming process became so restrictive that many of the cast members grew frustrated with all the rules and regulations that prevented them from racing the way they normally would on actual streets. Big Chief admitted that some crew members would often seek out real illegal races in whatever town they were filming in the night before they were supposed to shoot, just to get their fix of genuine street racing without permits and police supervision. Some cities eventually changed their minds about allowing the show to film on their streets, with Tulsa, Oklahoma being one notable example where officials decided to stop issuing permits because they worried the show was promoting illegal activity. The irony is that while the show presents itself as documenting dangerous illegal racing, the actual filming process involves more safety precautions and official oversight than most legitimate drag racing events at professional tracks. Fact 7. Cast fired from day jobs. Derek Travis discovered that appearing on Street Outlaws could come with serious professional consequences when his regular employer decided to terminate his employment specifically because they disapproved of his participation in what they perceived as illegal racing activities on national television. Travis had been working a steady day job to support himself and his racing hobby when he joined the cast, but his newfound television fame quickly became a liability in his professional life. After Travis became a celebrity in Oklahoma due to his role on Street Outlaws, his employer made the decision to take direct action against him for his televised racing activities. Travis later explained the situation by saying that his bosses didn't like the fact that he was doing something illegal on television, so he actually got fired because of the show, even though the racing was conducted with proper permits and safety measures during filming. The loss of his regular employment didn't slow Travis down or discourage him from continuing his racing career, and he quickly found new work with fellow Street Outlaw cast member Dave Comstock, who was much more understanding about his racing activities and television commitments. Travis ended up working an incredibly demanding schedule for Comstock, putting in 60 to 68 hours per week at his new job, and then having to turn around and film whenever the producers wanted the cast to shoot new episodes. This situation highlighted one of the unexpected challenges that cast members faced when the show became popular, as their television fame could actually hurt their ability to maintain regular employment with more conservative employers. Travis's experience showed how participating in a reality show about racing could have real-world consequences that extended far beyond just the filming schedule, affecting cast members' ability to earn steady income from traditional jobs. Fact 8. Shop targeted in armed attack. In 2015, Midwest street cars became the target of a terrifying armed attack when an unknown gunman fired 11 bullets into the building, creating a dangerous situation that thankfully didn't result in any injuries because the shop was closed and empty at the time of the shooting. The auto shop, which served as the home base for the Street Outlaws crew's racing operations, suddenly found itself in the crosshairs of what appeared to be a very deliberate and targeted act of violence. The business owner, Sean Ellington, reported to police that the suspect didn't stop with just shooting up the shop, but also made the situation much more personal and threatening by approaching his own home. According to the police report, a random motorcyclist confronted someone described as an involved person, who was likely Ellington himself, and told him that he knew who he was before showing him a gun that he had on his person, making it clear that this wasn't just a random act of vandalism, but a direct threat. The attack highlighted how the show's popularity had unfortunately attracted some very dangerous attention from people who were willing to use violence and intimidation against the cast members. Not everyone was a fan of the #1 show on Discovery Channel, and some individuals were apparently angry enough about the Street Outlaws crew to resort to gunfire and personal threats to express their displeasure. Fortunately, nobody was hurt during this scary incident. But it demonstrated the real-world risks that came with being famous for illegal racing activities, even when those activities were actually legal and controlled for television purposes. The attack showed how the show's outlaw image could attract genuinely dangerous people who might not understand the difference between television drama and actual criminal behavior. Fact 9. Fatal crash, lacked proper permits. During filming on August 7, 2022, into the morning of August 8th, Ryan Fellows tragically lost his life in a fatal crash while the production team was operating with incomplete permits that may have compromised safety protocols for the filming of Street Outlaws. Fastest in America. Fellows was driving his gold Nissan S30-bodied car, known as a Datsun 240Z when it was sold in the United States, on Las Vegas Boulevard near the Harry Allen generating station when the vehicle crashed, rolled over, and burst into flame. According to reports from Sinclair News affiliate KSNV, Warner Brothers Discovery and Pilgrim Media Group, who were the producers for the show, had managed to obtain a Nevada Department of Transportation permit that allowed them to close the street for filming purposes. However, the investigation revealed that they had not secured the required Clark County filming permit, which would have specified additional safety precautions and protocols that might have prevented the tragedy. The missing county permit became a significant issue because film permits typically include detailed safety requirements that production companies must follow when conducting dangerous activities like high-speed racing. Clark County officials confirmed to News 3 Las Vegas that no film permit had ever been sought or issued for the production, meaning that important safety measures that would normally be mandated for such filming may not have been in place during the fatal race. The incident reignited a long-standing controversy from 2015 when the National Hot Rod Association had threatened to revoke the licenses of competitors who participated in Street Outlaws, citing safety concerns. The tragedy highlighted the difference between professional NHRA events, which are held on closed circuits with proper crash walls, catch fencing, and rescue crews positioned at appropriate points, versus the street filming locations used by the show. Fact 10. Cast members' secret prison past. Jonathan J.J. Da Boss. Day emerged from an 8-year federal prison sentence to build one of Street Outlaws, Memphis's most formidable racing operations, transforming his criminal past into the foundation for television stardom that few viewers initially knew about. Day served his time in federal custody before the Street Outlaws franchise expanded to include the Memphis spin-off, and his prison experience became part of his authentic outlaw credentials that helped establish his reputation as someone who had genuinely lived the rebellious lifestyle that the show celebrated. The fact that J.J. DeBoss had spent nearly a decade behind bars wasn't something that Discovery Channel tried to hide from audiences, and Day himself has been open about discussing his time in prison when asked about his background. His willingness to talk about his incarceration added to his credibility as someone who had paid real consequences for living outside the law, unlike cast members who were simply playing up their outlaw personas for television cameras. Day's prison background also helped explain his leadership style and the respect he commanded from other racers in the Memphis street racing scene, since his fellow competitors knew he had served serious time and wasn't just pretending to be tough for the cameras. His authentic criminal history set him apart from other reality show personalities who might adopt rebellious images without having actually lived through the consequences of breaking the law. The transition from federal prisoner to television star represented a remarkable second chance for Day, who was able to channel his street credibility and leadership skills into building a successful racing team and television career. His story demonstrated how the Street Outlaws franchise could provide opportunities for people with troubled pasts to find legitimate success, even though his criminal background remained an important part of his television persona and personal story. Fact 11. Doc's 75 first car deal. James Doc. Love's entire automotive journey began with what might be one of the best car deals in Street Outlaws history when he purchased his very first vehicle, a 1972 Chevrolet Monte Carlo, for the incredibly low price of just $75. This wasn't just a fun project car or something he bought to tinker with in his spare time, but rather the vehicle that became his primary source of transportation for several years, proving that you don't need to spend thousands of dollars to get a reliable ride. Doc has explained that this Monte Carlo represented his first independent vehicle purchase, marking an important milestone in his transition to automotive independence and responsibility. The $75 price tag was so remarkably low that it demonstrated either incredible luck in finding a seller who desperately needed to get rid of the car quickly, or Doc's early ability to spot automotive value that others might have overlooked. After purchasing the Monte Carlo, Doc invested in some new rear brakes to make the vehicle safe and roadworthy, which was apparently all the car needed to become his trusted daily driver for an extended period. The fact that such a minimal investment in repairs could transform a $75 purchase into years of reliable transportation showed both the quality of older American muscle cars and Doc's practical approach to automotive ownership. This humble beginning with an incredibly affordable Monte Carlo helped establish Doc's lifelong appreciation for Chevrolet vehicles and classic American muscle cars, which would eventually lead to his involvement in the street racing scene and his eventual television fame. The $75 Monte Carlo proved that great automotive stories don't always start with expensive purchases, and sometimes the best deals come from being willing to take a chance on a car that others might have passed by. Fact 12. Million Dollar Cast Members. While Street Outlaws cast members frequently discuss their financial struggles on camera and talk about needing prize money to balance their racing debts, the reality behind the scenes tells a completely different story about their actual wealth and earning power. Big Chief, whose real name is Justin Shearer, has accumulated a net worth estimated at over $2 million, while Sean Farm Truck Whitley has built up approximately $500,000 in personal wealth, making their on-screen personas of financially struggling racers somewhat misleading. The disconnect between their televised financial struggles and their actual wealth may have been accurate during the early seasons of the show, but it certainly doesn't reflect their current financial situations after years of television success, sponsorship deals, and merchandising opportunities. Big Chief reportedly earns around $20,000 per episode, and when you multiply that by the hundreds of episodes that have been produced across all the Street Outlaws series, those appearance fees alone add up to substantial income before considering any other revenue streams. Farm Truck has also done quite well financially from his television career, combining his $20,000 per episode salary with income from his racing victories and various business ventures to reach his impressive net worth. Other cast members have similarly benefited from the show's success, with Sean Murder Nova Ellington worth an estimated $500,000, and David Daddy Dave Comstock approaching $900,000 in total wealth. Much of their earnings do get reinvested back into their racing operations, as building and maintaining competitive street racing vehicles requires constant financial investment in parts, repairs, and upgrades. However, the success of the Street Outlaws franchise, combined with sponsorship opportunities and merchandise sales, has clearly provided these cast members with far more financial security than their on-screen discussions about money troubles would suggest to viewers. Fact 13. Farm Truck's left-hand greeting mystery. Astute fans of Street Outlaws have noticed one of Sean Farm Truck Whitley's most distinctive personal quirks, which is his consistent habit of shaking hands exclusively with his left hand, rather than following the traditional right-handed greeting that most people use in social situations. This unusual handshake pattern has become one of the most recognizable aspects of Farm Truck's on-screen personality, and viewers who pay close attention to his interactions with other cast members and competitors quickly pick up on this consistently different approach to meeting people. The reason behind Farm Truck's left-handed greeting appears to be related to an undisclosed medical condition that affects his right hand or arm, though he has chosen to keep the specific details of his health situation private rather than discussing it openly on the show or in interviews. This decision to maintain privacy about his medical background is completely understandable, as many people prefer not to share personal health information with television audiences, even when their condition creates noticeable behavioral patterns. What makes Farm Truck's left-handed handshakes particularly interesting is how naturally he has adapted to this greeting style and how smoothly most people he meets are able to adjust to his unconventional approach without making the interaction awkward or uncomfortable. His confidence in extending his left hand for greetings shows that he has long since adapted to whatever medical situation requires this modification to standard social customs. The left-handed greeting has become such a consistent part of Farm Truck's public persona that regular viewers of Street Outlaws now expect to see him reach out with his left hand whenever he meets someone new, making it one of those small personal details that helps distinguish him from other cast members and adds to his unique character on the show. Fact 14. Video game rated as Total Drag. The official Street Outlaws video game, titled Street Outlaws: The List, became a spectacular failure when it was released across multiple gaming platforms, receiving some of the most brutal reviews in racing game history from critics who found it almost unplayably boring. The game was developed by Team 6 Game Studios and published by Game Mill Entertainment in North America and Maximum Games in Europe, launching for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One on October 22, 2019, with a Microsoft Windows version following on November 29. Switch Player magazine gave the game an absolutely devastating score of just 2 out of 5 stars and delivered one of the most memorable negative reviews in gaming journalism by summarizing that Street Outlaws: The List is a total drag. Not only is the racing boring to the level of watching paint dry, but the mechanical upgrading of vehicles is complex for those who aren't knowledgeable about cars. The review continued by stating that only devoted fans of the television show or hardcore racing enthusiasts would find any pleasure in playing the game. The criticism focused heavily on how the developers had somehow managed to take the excitement and drama of street racing and turn it into a tedious gaming experience that failed to capture any of the adrenaline or entertainment value that made the television show popular with audiences. The mechanical upgrading system was apparently so complicated and poorly designed that casual players couldn't figure out how to improve their vehicles, while the actual racing gameplay was so dull that it made players want to stop playing almost immediately. Despite the terrible reception of the first game, the publishers decided to release a sequel called Street Outlaws 2, Winner Takes All for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch on September 21, 2021, with a Windows version coming on December 3rd. Fact 15. Show spawned NHRA controversy. The National Hot Rod Association created a major controversy in 2015 when they threatened to revoke the professional racing licenses of any competitors who who chose to participate in Street Outlaws, viewing the television show as a dangerous promotion of illegal street racing activities that undermined their efforts to keep drag racing safe and legitimate. The NHRA's position was that the show glorified illegal racing and encouraged dangerous behavior that could result in serious injuries or deaths, which directly conflicted with their mission to promote safe and regulated drag racing at proper facilities. The timing of this threat was particularly significant because it came during a period when Street Outlaws was gaining massive popularity and attracting viewers who might be inspired to try street racing themselves after watching the show. NHRA officials were concerned that the television program was sending the wrong message about racing safety and legal compliance, especially since their own events are held on closed circuits with proper crash walls, catch fencing, and professional rescue crews positioned at strategic points around the track. The controversy was reignited years later when Ryan Fellows died during filming in 2022, which seemed to validate the NHRA's original concerns about the safety risks associated with the show's racing format. The fatal accident highlighted the fundamental differences between professional NHRA events, which have extensive safety infrastructure and medical support, versus the street filming locations used by Street Outlaws, which lack the same level of protective barriers and emergency response capabilities. The NHRA's threat to revoke licenses put professional racers in a difficult position, forcing them to choose between appearing on a popular television show that could boost their careers and maintaining their ability to compete in sanctioned drag racing events. This created a clear division between the organized drag racing community and the Street Outlaws television franchise that continues to influence how professional racers view their involvement with the show.